Hey guys, Fox here. It's time, although a little late, for my games of the year for 2023. Last year I kind of did a little like different categories for the awards. I think I'm going to keep it a little more simple this year and just talk about the 5 favorite games that I did film. But before I do that for my 5 favorite games, I'm going to talk about a few honorable mentions, and particularly one that probably would have made the list if I actually was able to complete it. And that would have been Baldur's Gate 3. Absolutely am loving the game. I'm not sure if it might have been my favorite or not. But I am playing through it with a buddy of mine, so it's taking longer to complete. We're about almost done with Act 2 and moving on to Act 3, but Act 3 is pretty big from what I understand, so I got some time to complete it before I think I could properly rank it in some of my games. So it may end up being part of 2024 games, but we will see. Some other games that I completed that I really enjoyed during 2023 is Dead Island 2. This was a lot of fun to play with friends. I could see this being a little dull on your own, but playing with a group of buddies, 2 buddies actually, because you can only play with 3 people at a time. This was a lot of fun. Big improvement of the first game. I know this one went through production hell and took forever to come out, but in the end it came out and was a very good, solid co-op game. A lot of fun to play through and slay all the zombies, go through. There's lots of side quests. There's lots of stuff to do. You can revisit lots of areas. You can do all the collectible collecting and stuff like that in it. And just really a lot of weapon customization with what you want to do. So it's a good time, a lot of fun, great co-op game. Another game that I did finish this year but didn't crack the top 5, but I really enjoyed, was Fire Emblem Engage. This came out earlier in the year. This was a lot of fun. You know what to expect when it comes to the battle mechanics here in Fire Emblem games, and this one's no exception to that. Very good. The hub area I thought was a little better than Three Houses, but I think the overall story in Three Houses was just slightly better than Engage. I just had a ton of fun with this. There's not a whole lot to say except that if you really enjoy a Fire Emblem game, this one will be an absolute blast. I guess one of the cool things was to summon legendary Fire Emblem heroes to fight with you. Those were a lot of fun to have with you. So that was kind of neat. Another one that I finished mid-year, which I thought was pretty interesting. This actually game came out a while ago, especially on PC. But when it came out on PS5, I believe it was 2022, but I didn't play it until 2023. And that's Inscryption. This was quite a weird deck building game. It was very unique. You had some puzzles to solve as well. Sorry, this one's sealed because it was free on PlayStation for a while, so I just downloaded it and played it. But it was very unique. Weird way you did combat and stuff like that with the cards, and they added a lot of different modifiers in there to create different challenges, especially with the different bosses that you fought during this game. A lot of fun, very cool indie style trapment game, and then it had a lot of weird stuff with it, where the developers filmed these FMV things into the game to try to still tell another story on top of it. It's pretty unique. I highly suggest you guys give it a shot if you're into any forms of deck building games. And lastly, a lot of controversy probably from a lot of you folks, but this game did not make my top 5. Although I still enjoyed it quite a bit, is Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. For me, this game was great, but to me, it was just more Breath of the Wild. It felt like DLC, even though there was a lot more map to explore for, the caverns underneath and the skylines on top. That was great and all, and it was kind of fun to explore, but usually, even with Breath of the Wild, after I hit about 60 hours of exploring and doing stuff, I got bored and was ready to complete the game. So, and that kind of happened with this too. I was doing a lot of exploring, really enjoying it at first, and then I was like, okay, I'm ready for this game to be done. So I chugged on to the end and fought it, which I did not care for the slog that was to get to the end boss. That annoyed me. Another thing is the whole building mechanics with making devices and transportation vehicles or tools or weapons or whatever. With the building stuff, I was just kind of meh with. At times it was just like, oh great, I have to build more shit, and I just didn't feel like doing it. But sometimes it was a unique challenge and it was still enjoyable. But other than that, yeah, it was still really good. But honestly, I think I thought Breath of the Wild was a more... it's hard to say that it was better, but it was more exciting because it was just so new and a great new. And this just feels like Breath of the Wild 1.5. So... still, but I'm not taking away from that the game was still great, and it's very justifiable, a top game for a lot of people, and that's great. All right, let's move into my top games of 2023, and at number 5 is Trails into Reverie, kind of the prologue, the last chapter for the Trails in the Sky, the Crossbell arc, and Cold Steel. This kind of put all that together and kind of finished that chapter of the Trails series, and got ready to move on to the next. So it was very unique. You had tons of characters to play with. I loved how the game broke it up into different parties, so you could play different parts of the story with different parties because they were all geographically separated or whatnot. And it was a lot of fun. The whole Reverie corridor where everybody can meet up, but they don't necessarily know why they're there, or, they don't have a memory of the Reverie corridor once they are there, when they come back to the main world, is pretty unique. It was a fun story. The combat always gets just a little bit better and better as you play these Trails games. And just loved the banter and the mixed, seeing all those characters mixed together and have their conversations and talk about each other, things they've heard or what they've done, is really cool. Really love the game. The only unique thing about this game is this character right here that you see on the cover. You don't even see that character until like the epilogue of the story. It is a weird choice for the cover art character, in my opinion, but it's okay. That's fine. Love me some Trails. I can't wait for I believe it's Daybreak to come out in 2024 this year. So really excited for the next chapter. And at number 4, I actually don't have a physical copy of this game yet because I backed it on Kickstarter, and thus it's taking forever to get to me. So, and that has to go with Sea of the Stars. I love Sea of Stars. It was, it kind of hit some of the nostalgic strings with me, harnering back to like Chrono Trigger, those days, Earthbound, Final Fantasy VI, stuff like that. And what it did was it created one of the most gorgeous sprite-based games I had ever seen. It was so colorful, so beautiful. The world was built so well. And not to mention a very cool and unique story to go with everything. And I just liked that it added the different like mechanics that you would do, like with timing presses. It kind of reminds you a little bit of either Super Mario RPG or like Legend of Dragoon. Just adding unique button presses to while you do like special attacks and stuff like that. Combat was an absolute blast. The soundtrack was phenomenal, and the characters were all highly enjoyable. it's definitely a game I think that's on a lot of people's radars if they haven't already played it. So it was an excellent number 4. Number 3 goes to an actual remake, and that is Super Mario RPG. A game I remember of fondly when I was a kid. This is something I played. I remember specifically it was during a Thanksgiving break from school, and I borrowed the game from a neighbor, and I played it all break long until I finished it. Absolutely loved it. And then when they surprise announced that, hey, we remade the game, I was very excited but skeptical. And then I figured out that it was actually a 1-for-1 remake. They only added a few small quality of life changes to make the game, I don't know, I'd say arguably a little easier, but a lot better in some ways as well. They had, excuse me, they completely redid the soundtrack, which was really cool. It was awesome to hear, but also another cool thing about that was that they also just included the original soundtrack so you could switch it in the options menu. It was a lot of fun to do the timed attacks in the battles. The battles were great. It's just such a good, lighthearted, almost an entry-level RPG. I'm thinking about letting my son give this one a shot. He really is starting to get into RPGs. He enjoyed Miitopia he just liked the humor, and I think the light humor in this game would be enjoyable for him as well. Yeah, absolutely loved Super Mario RPG. Number 2 is a game I'm still playing to this day, and I probably will play it for the many months to come because it has a lot of replayability. And what's unique about this one is I would classify it as a roguelite tactical RPG. Yeah. I know this game probably came out probably in 2022 on the PC, but I could be wrong. It could have been fresh on PC in 2023, but I know it came out on consoles in 2023. And that is The Last Spell. What a cool idea for a game. So let me get you to the premise of this one. The world has been infatuated with casting spells and are at war with using magic, almost to the point to where people created such powerful magic that it created almost like atomic weapons variant of magic. So it was ruining the planet to them so much so that so much magic was used that it created like this toxic mist on the planet, and thus started creating all these nasty monsters and creatures. And the only way to get rid of it was that some mages got together to cast something called the Last Spell in order to abolish all magic and thus let the planet start to heal. So what you're doing is you get a random batch of heroes with random perks and random weapons to build up and defend a little town. And at the middle of the town is a circle where a mage or mages are trying to cast the last spell, and you need to defend it from the mist that lets out a bunch of monsters and stuff. So it's a ton of fun because you get unique heroes all the time. You can expand, you can get more heroes to add, you put up defenses, you can put up like ballistas and catapults to like almost like a tower defense, put up traps out there to defend off. And every hero has, depending on what weapon they have equipped, has different unique abilities and spells. It's a ton of fun. And then throughout the game you unlock different like omens or different abilities that you can use on these runs through the two different gods, which are kind of depicted on the front cover. You got the dark one and the light one here. And when you unlock like different weapons, you can, or armor sets, weapon sets, abilities, heroes have more health. more armor, or what are called omens. So when you start a run, you can add these omens to your run to make it a little easier. There are also some omens that can make it more difficult. Stuff like that. It's a ton of fun. I've wiped only a couple times, but I take my time playing this game, and I try to min-max my little heroes all the time. And if I lose a hero, it's devastating, and then I have to go to the end and get another hero, get them all equipped up and stuff like that. And it's an absolute blast. Really love this game and could not recommend it more. One last thing on this game is that the soundtrack is killer. It's got this like heavy metal style soundtrack on it. I'll play some here for shoot, I'll play it right now. All right, for my number one game of 2023 for Emperor Fox has to go to something that really hit me good. Absolutely loved every aspect of this game. And that's Octopath Traveler 2. What amazing game. Man, they just took the idea of the original Octopath and just cranked it to max. They had a ton of fun making this. There's all the characters are great. They're all done very well. Their stories are so engaging. They have more banter, or just they actually communicate and acknowledge each other throughout the story. They even have unique, like, large side missions that pair two characters together to create a story. It's so good. And wow, the soundtrack. So impressive. Definitely my favorite soundtrack of the year. Really good. I even listen to it to this day, and I'm begging Square Enix to release a vinyl version of it. I would love to listen to it on vinyl, but I had to deal with the CD version. But that's okay. So good. These characters were great. Usually when you have a large cast of characters that have these side story, these backstories to them, there's usually a few you're like, I don't think I'm gonna like this one, or that one was weak, this one was extra strong. They didn't do it balanced very well. And I thought that might have been the way when I first met Agnia the dancer. I was like, she's gonna have a very typical dancer story. And although it kind of was that way, the way they wrote her personality and her character to herself was absolutely amazing. And in the end, I was actually really cheering for her to do what she wanted to do in the world. I didn't think I was going to go that way. Same went with Ochette, the little beast girl. I was like, this one's going to aggravate me. No, she was written so well that you ended up liking her a lot. And then you had definitely some darker stories with Throne here, or Casti, Oswald. Really tough stories, backstories to those characters, and then how they grew, how they overcame what they grew up being. Is something else. And, you even have Hikari here, who was, kind of banished from a kingdom, his own kingdom that he was supposed to rule one day. That was a good story. And then just some of how these characters meshed together, it was so impressive. And probably one of the fan favorites. A lot of people like Particio. He's so positive, so overwhelmingly positive for a merchant, wanting to better the world. What a good character. But the one that takes the cake here is Temenos here. He was so well... what a unique personality. And really enjoyable, but sarcastic. Very... I can't even get it into proper words. Very unique. If you play this game, you're going to understand completely on how much people like Temenos in this game. Very, very, very cool. Not much else to talk about, especially with the graphics of the world. I mean, it's something you've seen in the original Octopath Traveler, but still gorgeous, still beautiful, new environments. Liked how all the world was connected. You had some different things that you could get into. The day-night cycle was also impressive because that changed what characters were out at night, what characters were out during the day. It also changed what abilities, overworld abilities your characters had, because they had different things that could happen during night and day. There were some side stories that you could completely miss if you weren't in the right location or got the hint from some side character that you talked to that said, oh yeah, this so-and-so, they usually show up at the beach at sunrise. So if you went there at night and just waited around for sunrise to come, then you could meet up with that character. Oh man, and they did such a good job with all the NPCs. All the NPCs had their own story. They all had something to say, something relevant to the world, whether it helped with other side quests or the main quest for that matter, stuff like that. Really, really well done. They took some time to develop not just your 8 main characters, but the NPCs of the world. It was really, really impressive. And really the last thing is the battle system, which was already pretty good in Octopath Traveler, was even better in Octopath Traveler 2. Adding your secondary classes, boosting, and taking the, building up your AP points to do these boosted attacks where you had up to 5 additional actions to take during your turn if you chose to save up those boosts. It was so cool and so helpful when you were taking on some difficult bosses. But what was also unique about this game is that really you can beat this game without grinding, which is an improvement over the original. You did not need to grind to beat this game. Now, with that being said, there is a secret boss at the end of the game, which you definitely are going to have to grind, because you're going to have to be max level. You're going to have to make sure you have perfect equipment. You're going to have to make sure that you plan your classes just perfectly so you can do combos and make somebody just that heavy hitting tank or whatever it is necessary. But the grind isn't as tedious if you want to grind up. They have all these trinkets that you can equip to characters that boost the amount of experience you get or money or whatever like that. They really thought this through. This game, in my eyes, was pretty much perfect. I loved every aspect of this game. Story, characters, music, world. So fantastic. Well guys, I'm done gushing about this one, and I hope you all give it a fair shot, because it is worth it. It is an absolute masterpiece in my opinion, and my 2023 Game of the Year.